See, we grew up in this village in which life was always communal, and everybody was your parent or your sibling. To be alive meant to work with other people, to accept their help and to give help in any way you could. So that's always how we have understood life.
Thank you.
I'm driven passionately by Gandhi's idea or insight that we must each be the change that we want. In this place where we're talking, which is Amagoro in Kenya, we've set up a wonderful community center which includes a library as part of that work. Because I always think that any change and any great human future will depend a lot on education.
So that one day I can want to be a president in Kenya.
The people of Amagoro are very friendly. They are willing to learn. They are receptive of new ideas. The only downside is that the poverty levels are a bit high.
Most of the kids here are spiritually very rich but financially poor.
Most people live in small huts and survive on probably $1 a week or $1 a day if they're very, very lucky.
Guys cannot afford to buy food to sustain the kids or even to buy books for the kids.
They barely have money to feed themselves or pay school fees or clothe themselves.
The only opportunity we have at a young age is to read, is to go to school.
As I was walking home one time, I saw something unusual that I had not seen in a while. Usually in the evenings, boys and mostly boys leave school and they have to take cattle home from the grazing and herding. And one of the things that I saw was a child holding up a book. I don't know this child, I never saw them. They were not in uniform. They were taking their cows home with one hand and with a stick in one hand, trying to guide the cows. And they had a book they were holding. And I realized that we have to continue what we are doing, because that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't opened our doors and we hadn't put a book in that child's hand. I remember that child, and I remember that we can actually fit English literacy into our culture, into the same culture, and not change it. We can fit it right in, and that is an amazing thing. I have not forgotten that picture yet. Yes.
Ani mimi. Shake, shake the mango tree. Shake, shake the mango tree. Shake, shake the mango tree. Shake, shake the mango tree.
Because Swahili is spoken at home, all Kenyan school children are automatically fluent in Swahili, but they are not fluent in English, which is the language of instruction.
And then the minute they get into standard 1, they're expected to understand English and learn things in English.
Tree. Shake, shake the mango tree. Shake, shake the mango tree. The mango.
So perhaps 90% of the academic success of a Kenyan person or child is determined by their mastery of English.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, L, M, O, P, Q, R, S.
So for anybody who has just a tentative grasp of English, you're not going to pass, and you're definitely not going to be moving on to the next.
So it's 6 out of 100 in the end that will go to university if you keep that track.
So that is why Kiwimbi's quest to improve English literacy cannot stop at any rate, and must continue and must be better and better.
Yeah, I go very often, sometimes twice in a day. I go in the morning and stay for 3 hours, then I go for lunch and come back in the evening.
It has improved my English
because there are lots of books in the e-reader, and also there are revision books, storybooks, and even novels.
I've read a lot of storybooks which has improved my composition writing.
Some of our students who come to the Kiwimbi Center will not go to university for various reasons. So we end up providing them what their schools do not. Our schools in Amagoro do not give children the opportunity to discover if they are good in music, or if they are good in drawing or painting, or if they are good in other crafts.
There are many, like the talented people, are left behind. Yeah, but we have great footballers here. We have great artists, but they're overlooked.
So the Kiwimbi Center fills a big gap. So it's no wonder that you see very many children coming to explore this.
Everything we do is artistic. The way we walk, the way we dress, the way we cook, the way we sing. So there's art all over.
We have a special volunteer, really, an artist, very talented artist.
For the last 2 weeks, we've been having Leon from Italy.
And he's teaching little kids how to draw.
Art is that moment that you try to capture, and it's that moment that makes you feel alive.
We should want to keep him around forever, but unfortunately.
And out of the very many children he has worked with, together in less than 10 days, they have produced more than 500 paintings, and he says that 3 of the children are probably potential masters, which is really a wonderful discovery for the village. So Kiwimbi is going to support them and to find ways of assisting them to explore their talent and to develop their potential to the highest possible level.
So if he didn't come and we didn't focus on this, that would have been a skill and a talent that they would never have realized.
There's an overwhelming market out there. All they're waiting for is that product to reach them.
And this is part of why in Kiwimbi it becomes critical to provide people who will not succeed in the academic track, roughly 94%, with alternative pathways.
And we are also keeping up with the traditions and helping to revisit these old traditions that are dying away, especially in places like Amagoro.
Such as pottery, basket weaving, and to identify the ancient masters, the ones who have been trained by the ancients who are still with us, and bring them to the center to come to this place where there are a lot of young people.
This generation with the new generation, and I think that's the biggest thing, is having a place the community can actually come together. If they get together, they can make anything happen.
So we're quite happy that Kiwimbi now is not just a library, which it was at the beginning, but now it's a multi-dimensional community center that attracts more than 400 people a day, which is amazing.
And we are getting more and more people volunteering from all walks of life. And they come back. Some of them never ask to be paid. They just come and ask, can I teach? Can I help? Some of the adults too, who are reading the newspapers, will put down their newspapers and they will start coming whenever they know the kids are coming to help with whatever program they're able to help with.
I could come here at 8, I read a book, I read newspapers, I look through what the kids are reading, and my day is well spent.
So you have people teaching people, you have high school kids teaching primary school kids, then you have university kids teaching high school kids, then you have elders teaching everybody. So this is part of the spirit.
When we continue with what we're doing, as long as we continue growing and responding to this community, our growth is limitless. It's limitless. Yes.
I think it's almost mystical. It's sort of it's just a positive atmosphere, very difficult to define. And I think most of it is the eclecticism of the place. Keep in mind, Amagoro is a village, and villages by definition tend to be parochial and perhaps even backwards. But here is a village in which there's a combination of people from around the world, and what's available is the future. And even when kids walk, they are barefoot. They are told that they can either read a traditional book with which they are familiar, or that they can study from an e-reader, which for them is often the first time they are touching an electronic book. And some of the people instructing them are people visiting from a different continent. So there's that sort of sense of the future, as a crucible, if you will, of the future, as a place where for Amagoro, the future is born again.
The word Kiwimbi means a ripple, to start something.
You know, when you drop any small thing into water, you see waves moving around. So it has started as a small wave, but eventually it's going to be big.
It started on a single note, then it expounds.
Slowly by slowly, but effectively and succinctly. So that is what we are, is we start a ripple that keeps going and grows into a mighty wind and a mighty ripple and a mighty wave.
Kiwimbi started Amagoro, now it's going out to other schools. And everybody is now trying to see what is this Kiwimbi, why can't it come to our place?
Before we had to go and tell the schools, oh, here we are. But now those headmasters, those principals came and said, if these kids can speak English from Amagoro Primary, whatever you're doing, we want it too.
The literacy levels in this community, and that's why I started by saying we're very lucky. We're going to have many people knowing how to read and write. So in the long term, we want to have many more professors coming from here.
And I know that many people, many children, many youngsters come from far distances to the library, not because it's the only one in the area, but I think if it were others, I think they'd keep coming to Kiwimbi, because this is something that always shows, even if you can't really put it down in words, and if you work from the heart, results end up by showing.
Yeah, it's just something that I can't explain really, just in the heart. I feel nice whenever I look into the students' eyes and they feel like their lives are being transformed.
Anytime I have a problem and I need a teacher, a nearby teacher, I just run to the teachers at the library.
Yeah, I like the teachers, let's say all of them, because they know how to teach, they help me. I look up to Mr. Joshua.
And they can even recite some poem, they can even sing. For me, that means that they really love me. Yeah.
Being in a program that's making the child succeed and being part of it is quite a thing I like. Yeah. I will be the most proud person to see my effort together with others join to change this community to what we feel it should be.
In America, they always tell you, if you want it, you work for it. And I think that is exactly what the kids need. To look inside of themselves, to get that confidence, to know that if they want something, they need to find out how to get it and go for it. And that is what we try to do, is to make sure they understand the power is within them, because that's the biggest lesson I learned from America, is that if you want it, just go for it, do the best that you can, and you can get it.
Shine on us, now we found who we are. There's no way to hold it in. No more hiding who we want to be, cause this is us.
We did not think that it would become so dramatically successful in such a short time.
We wanted the growth, but we did not foresee the amount of enthusiasm the children would have. People are interested, so we're getting more and more children coming in and more children wanting to do this.
Like in art, right now we have 7 students, but last week
the number expanded and we could not handle because of materials.
We told them that wait for some time. When the materials will be available, that is when we can make them to come.
You see, sometimes you are at a loss, you don't know what to do. Yeah, exactly.
One of the biggest tools that the schools could use right now is books, more books. In the last time that we looked at Standard 8, they only had 20 books for 102 children, 20 curriculum books. Professor Olubai was so shocked. So it is possible to actually get books in every child's hand if a child has an e-reader. And in these e-readers, they come preloaded with 200, a minimum of 200 curriculum books, from early childhood education, preschool, all the way to high school.
So you can see an e-reader is bigger than, it's a library on its own.
The number one way right now, the easiest way, the most effective way to get books in children's hands that they need to pass. So that is the reason why we are pushing for sponsors. But if we don't do that, they will not get the e-readers. They can't afford it. The cost of living here is very high, and they're living a very poor life. But they're trying their best, but the e-reader is way out of reach for them. Yes.
I'd want to see Kiwimbi grow into greater heights, and even have a separate studio, a big studio within just Kiwimbi, so that the artists can be there and even create a hall where they can exhibit their work. Because as it is now, we have a very small room, we are so congested, but in 5 years, if all goes well, we'll expand it.
I think expansion is just an inevitable fact. We need to expand. The kids are forced to sit outside because the space in the library is not enough.
So one of the things that Kiwimbi plans to do is to actually buy land, about 7 acres, that the money we currently receive from donors would be used to build what I would call a structural or physical endowment, where we would have buildings or tiny guest houses or hotels and meeting rooms and playgrounds that are owned by Kiwimbi that would actually raise money that would sustain our programs. Yes, so we do have a plan for sustainability. And that is the area that will take all of our creativity, and I hope that we succeed.
Maybe what I wish that our friends back in New Jersey and other well-wishers elsewhere, if they can donate and do something for us so that we can nurture these children, boys and girls, because they have talent. All they have is a little push. So it's my pledge that some help comes from somewhere so that we can see what we can do. Thank you. Yeah.
That if we want to be happy, it doesn't matter whether we live in New York or Amagoro or we live in Moscow. That the trick to happiness is not how many material possessions you have. That it's really whether you will accept to receive. So that so long as we give and receive and spend a lot of time together and always look out for people to share breakfast with and to share our jogging with and to share our trip to the gym with, that communal human background is something we should all revive, whether we live in Manhattan or we live in Amagora, because that may be the trick to happiness.